You are listening to The Growth Signal. My name is Alyssa and Nolte,
I am Jacquelyn Goldberg.
and we're going to get right into it. Jacquelyn, what is your hot take?
My hot take is that customer success is measured completely wrong today. And what I mean by that is oftentimes, especially in the SaaS world, it's all about NPS score and do they like us? And maybe are they renewing? But less around like, are we actually adding value and how you measure adding value to the end customer? Because at the end of the day, if you're not aligned to continue to evolve, to align to executive priorities and how those are changing and they're changing so fast, then ultimately at the end of the day, you're at much higher risk in today's day and age of being cut.
I think this is a very important conversation. And I think part of it is that we as an industry have set up customer success to fail in some ways. And I'll be full disclosure, I'm on the sales side. Like, I have deep respect for those renewal people, but they are not like, that's not my world
Mm.
entirely. And so, like, when I think about from a sales perspective, we have pretty clear, like, wins and losses, right? I closed a deal. I didn't close a deal, right? Okay. Pretty crystal clear. I feel like when customer success first got started, I guess, if you will, using my air quotes, it was less about having those hard metrics and having very clear, like, this is what good looks like for you, and more squishy and feely. And like, oh, did you talk about your dogs this weekend? Oh my gosh, how exciting for you. Oh, you got a picture of them at their wedding. Congratulations. Like, those are things, though, that to your point, you can't measure the value of knowing someone's dog's name.
Yeah. I
So
hate selling on a feeling, to your point.
exactly, exactly. So how then do we start to evolve past, oh, they like us, oh, we're friends, they would never fire a friend, whereas we all know, like, spoiler alert, you do lose out on clients, even if they love you, if you're not bringing value to their business. So
You need,
how do we start to change this?
yeah, it's hard because, it depends on what the product is, right? At the end of the day, what we sell here at Unframe is pretty horizontal. So what we're able to do with that is pretty powerful. So we're able to provide compounding value. So as I alluded to earlier, like if you try to know your customer better than they know themselves. So let's say your day to day is somebody that has potential influence and may not be a decision maker. How are we able to connect what we're doing on this project and how it may connect to the next project that ties to an executive commitment, right? And how do we continue to make them look good and help them tie the C-level priority to what they're doing in the day to day and grow that business over and over again for them? Like, how do we provide the value for them? So as an example, if you are working with a customer and they're in their 10K, it says which every company is saying right now, we need to grow without adding headcount. Well, what are things that you can continue to do in the solution you're working on to provide that value to show that you can help 10x whatever they're doing on a day-to-day basis?
And that can be really hard too, right?
Very hard.
Because it's different audiences. So this is our first time meeting on air. I have a research company and we do user experience research on like websites and digital experiences and all that good stuff. And one of the hardest things that I struggle with when I bring new researchers on is they're very analytical, they're very in the weeds. So they tend to think from an analytical in the weeds perspective. And that's what I brought them on to do, right? That's what makes a great researcher. But when your presentation, your report, your findings have to level up to that C level, it's the same story, but it's from a different perspective. And I always describe it to them like if I was holding an object and I had it, and from one angle it looked like a circle, and then I rotate it and you say, oh my gosh, this is actually a cylinder, right? The same object, but from different perspectives tells a different story. And we have a hard time sometimes saying, okay, cool, your, call to action button on the first page didn't convert. Okay, but what does that mean for the executive? Well, that means that you're not getting leads. And if you're not getting leads, it's not going to drive long term growth. So being able to tell that two-tier story can be really hard if you aren't constantly thinking about who needs to hear this story and why should they even care about what I have to say and how I connect it.
It's really hard. It's really hard. I think that especially because we're moving towards a world where critical thinking is going to be required more and more, given what AI can do at the bottom layer, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to take a shift from people. It's going to be a hard change. I think this is where, with the world of AI, there will there are people that are going to meet the moment, and there are people that it's change is hard, and that's that the way that they've been doing work is hard, is going to change, and that's going to be hard. And yeah, critical thinking, I think, is the most underrated skill
Yeah.
to interview for. Like, it's very, very hard to interview for that.
And I have such a hard time with that too, because I couldn't agree with you more. I look around and I very much have like a get shit done kind of personality. So for me, like, oh, okay, I don't understand this. I'm gonna go figure it out. I'm gonna go dig in. I'm gonna dive into it. I'm gonna, use my resources. I'm gonna ask my chat GPT, like, hey, I don't know how to do this data pivot. Help me, like walk me through it. Like I'm an idiot. And like I find that it does take though a certain level of, one, recognition that you don't have to have all the answers, that there's tools available to you. And two, if your brain ever has the question of like, I wonder if there's a way, there probably is, and you just don't know it yet. So like going out and finding that path. But those are all things of like critical thinking. And if I found the magic interview question, or if anyone has it, if you're a listener and you have this magic question to screen for critical thinking, please tell us, because that is, I think, the thing that's going to separate a employee who makes it out of the AI era and an employee who finds themselves irrelevant.
You bring up an amazing thought track that I was having about myself, like pre-AI and during AI and, post AI or whatever that future looks like. But as when I started in management well over a decade ago, and I remember like feeling fairly junior and like a little bit over my skis, and I was working for a startup. So I didn't have a lot of people that I could go to. And how do I learn? And so I would spend a lot of time on Google reading Harvard Business Review white papers and things along those lines to help me, like, hey, to your point, I have this gap. Like, how do I learn this gap? And that's where I would spend a lot of my time. And to think about it today, I'm not the, I'm, I was told this week, I'm very entrepreneurial, like as a head of sales, which apparently is very unusual, but that's the only thing that I know is like, I'm a builder. So our ICP feels off. I'm going to go find a way to fix it. I'm not going to just rely on marketing. I'm going to work with marketing on fixing that, as an example. And so I'm a builder. I'm an operator. I'm not the idea person at a startup, right? But what I love about the world of AI, to the point that you made, is that where I have gaps, I now have a sparring partner with AI. But with the critical thinking lens of like that, all the LLMs are going to do is oftentimes spit back positive reinforcement. And you have to be able to like see through that and be like, you're still wrong about this, and not just like rely on it. And that again is where the critical thinking continues to come in with that. And how do you harness that more?
This is why I love podcasting, because there are so many things that you said. And like I said, we were meeting for the first time. Like this is not, something that we had planned. I also joined a startup, didn't have anyone to teach me anything right out of college. And I think that gave me a reflex to go figure it out, because how else was it going to get done if it wasn't going to be me, and if I wasn't going to figure it out? I also have in my custom instructions for all of my LLMs, you are my sparring partner. I will assume that you are wrong 90% of the time. So you better be sure and cite your sources. Like these are the things that I'm putting into my LLM, because you're exactly right. And I even had a situation yesterday with I was working with Gemini on something. There was some new software that I'm using. It's I'm not used to it, and I don't have time to like read through all the documentation. And I said, "Hey, this is what I'm trying to do. Can I do this?" And it's like, "Yes, absolutely you can do this." And I said, "Okay, cool, walk me through it like I'm stupid." And then it was like, "Yes, do this, this, and this." And I sent a screenshot, and it's like, "Oh, you're right. We can't do this." And I'm like, "Okay, but you told me that we could." And so I had to change my instructions to say, only use the documentation provided by the site. Here is the URL. Do not deviate from this. And I'm still kind of like struggling and fighting with it. Now, I have been an AI OG for a long time. So I knew that like these are the things you have to push back on. I am very concerned that there's a lot of people who maybe don't have that depth of understanding that AI is amazing technology, but it has a long ways to go and it has come a long ways. So how do we start to develop this reflex of critical thinking? If it's hard to screen for, how do we teach it and the people that we have?
I don't have a good answer for that. I struggle with that every day. My only way of screening it right now, we're a Series B startup as of Tuesday. Um,
Congratulations, by the way. That's very
Thank
exciting.
you. And we're filming this on Thursday. So I used to say Series A, but um, is by just hiring really smart thinkers and figuring that out in the interview process, because I don't know how to train for that at scale today, is the honest answer. I'm hoping that I have some ideas that I'm going to test out, and I'm hopeful for that. But it's almost like starting a different version of McKinsey,
Yeah.
right? The consultants that can think critically. That's why so many consultants, I believe, have come over into the AI world and working at a lot of startups. Um, some of which we've hired. It's still a different world where, you have to, and startup land, you have to hustle, and there's a lot of pressure, and I still prefer people that have some startup experience. But I think the critical thinking from the consulting world will actually do those folks very well in the AI world.
Well, and I think too, it's like the critical thinking, but it's also like the ability to think flexibly, right? Because sometimes you get like a technician is what I'll call them, and a pure operator, right? So you use the words like vision, build, and operate. I consider myself, I'm more on the front end of that spectrum. I'm very much like visionary, big idea, builder. But as soon as the blueprint is put together, I am out. I am so like I can't do it. And so I found people in my life that love the operating part. They hate the front end of it. But I think we have to think, how do we connect with people who can imagine the world differently? Because I don't know about you, but I feel like 6 months ago, the world was completely different in the world of business than it is today. And that evolution is happening over and over and over again, and it's only getting faster.
Well, I think to that point, it's not even 6 months ago. It could be a month, a week,
Mm. Yeah.
right? And I was on a webinar earlier this week where customers are struggling because it's changing every week, and then nothing is getting done because there's crazy analysis paralysis on like, oh, something new came out. Oh, something new came out. And so that's a challenge within itself. But I think we have to rewire our brains to be yes and people,
Yeah.
right? Like, which is hard. Again, change is hard. Like, it's a hard part of the human condition. And some people are better at it than others. But I think in order for people to really get into this world, they're going to have to find a way to find the time to just test and learn and be a part of it, and just force. I think there's going to have to be a lot of forced um, adoption, unfortunately.
Well, and it's I think we too maybe as leaders need to create space for experimentation, right? Because like I think about in a startup, all you are doing is experimenting, right? Like you are just looking for like okay, you make up your ICP, but it's really your like aspirational ICP. Like, oh yes, I would love to sell $1 million worth of stuff to, whoever. However, then you start to realize real fast, like that is aspirational, not real. And so you tweak and you adjust and you
Yeah.
change messaging and you try new things and you try to meet new people and it's constant evolution and experimentation. And then we get to be quote unquote successful. We get to the point where we kind of like got it locked in. And all of a sudden that experimentation laboratory hackathon time kind of goes away and you're just kind of executing. And so I don't have a solution to this other than to say, I wonder if we as organizations need to create space for people to just take a Friday and on company time, go play with AI and try to build something and try to vibe code something and try to like do something that could change the course of business or turn out to be absolutely nothing at all. And we don't know, but that's the exciting part.
I love that idea. I think that's awesome. I think executing that is challenging in this fast moving world.
It is. Yeah,
I
and
can, and
especially productivity focused world.
yeah, But it's important, right, to have license for creativity there.
And I think even in our traditionally uncreative roles. So I'm married to a CPA, right? About as like strict of a profession as you can imagine. But he and I talk all the time about how is AI going to change accounting and how is it going to change the way he deals with clients. And his biggest challenge actually right now is clients going to their AIs to ask questions. And then they come to him with like, well, my AI said, da, 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 da. And he's like, well, that is very wrong. Right. But that is something that he's having to not only learn to deal with, but also how can he streamline his own work, his own email communications, his own process without sacrificing the quality that people have come to expect, especially with their accounting.
It's an I find that exciting.
Oh, I do too. That's why it's become
Be-
like our dinner date conversation.
yeah, because I think it'll continue to take away the mundane, right? To your point, email, the mundane, so that you can think of like really big problems and continue to push yourself to think bigger and harder about things.
I got for the first time this morning, I got a message from my Gemini on my phone and it said, I don't even remember what it was called. I've never seen it before, but it was something like, Alyssa, your daily recap is ready. And to your point about like taking away the mundane, and it was kind of a collection of like 8 to 10 bullet points that it had pulled from different sources from across my emails, my text messages, my calendar events. And it's like, okay, these are the things that you need to do this week. Oh, you have to fill out this form. You have to RSVP to this event. You have to buy these things because Liam has a swim meet this weekend. So you need more snacks for blah, blah, blah. And I've never seen it before, but it was really interesting to see all of these different things from across my data sources coming in to give me what I'm sure it was hopeful was a useful recap for my day. Now, some of it was right, some of it was wrong. Like there were things that I'm like, kind of, but not quite. Yes, I was Googling for this thing, but I don't really need it. I was just curious. So, with Unframe especially, this is kind of a little bit of your bread and butter, right? I just did some brief looking at your guys' website. So tell us more about like, what does it mean to take away the mundane and how do we go horizontal across an organization that way?
Yeah, so slightly different. Where Unframe comes in is we come in to help reimagine transformation within an organization. So the historical way of dealing with transformation is you go to a big consulting firm or a Palantir and you say, hey, like we want to change the day in the life of a CPA, right? We want to 10x the CPA.
Mm-hmm.
And you map out this whole work stream and then you go build it. It takes a lot of time and a lot of money. And
And
nobody
then it doesn't stick because it requires humans to say yes and buy in and adopt and keep it going after the consultant has left.
exactly. So that was my next thing. But the biggest thing is adoption. And if you don't get adoption, it's dead on arrival, right? And you've now invested a lot of time and money.
And like the readoption of it over and over and over again.
Exactly. So where Unframe comes in is we look at that big transformation problem and we say, how do we start with the first bite of the apple of that? So what is a very important part of the CPA's workflow that can have meaningful impact on their day-to-day that we can start with and to get that adoption? And we sit down with the right folks. We go away and we build something in a very short period of time that is production grade for the end user to have a look at, give feedback, and try. And then from there, we go to commercials because they've now seen something in production. They're happy with what's being built. Very quickly, we finish that in production. And then we go from that first bite of the apple because now we have adoption, right? Now we have people using it in their day to day because we keep the end business user in mind. We don't build in a vacuum. And then we add more and more what we call use cases on top of that. And before you know it, now somebody is basically licensing our platform with all of these use cases, a semantic layer underneath to now have a new transformation initiative. And we have now 10x the CPA. And so it essentially is a managed AI delivery platform where we deliver production grade solutions quickly to solve meaty problems.
I like too that you guys focus on the first bite at the apple because I have been in those transformation conversations where there's a million stakeholders involved and everybody wants something different and They aren't thinking adoption. They're thinking, what is the word I'm looking for? They're thinking like enforcement is the word I will use instead.
Mm.
And that I was on a conversation with someone one time who they wanted to roll out this new program. And I said, okay, cool. How are we going to incentivize people? How are we going to make sure that they actually do this thing? And he goes, well, we'll just come for their scalps if they don't. And I was like, oh, cool. So this is going to fail. Like, we're done here because this is not going to work. You're not going to have the willpower to enforce that forever. And you're not going to have the team who's going to put up with it forever. And so I like the idea of the first bite of the apple of a very user-centric thing that we can solve, that we can prove value, because there's a lot of software out there and a long history of solutions that have been all smoke and no fire. And you get it and you're like, okay, I have just been sold a bill of goods. This is really nothing. It's not doing what it said it was going to do. And so we've kind of trained our customers that you're going to get something and you're going to be disappointed, but eventually you'll be fine because you'll figure out how to work around it. But you're saying that you guys are coming in with a real user-centric value-first approach. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I love that. I think that's really important. And also, I can see a lot of companies finding value in, I'm not just pulling something off the shelf. I'm not trying to hire in expertise in-house. Like, you're bringing in people who can take this thing that we're all being asked to do, which is implement AI, and do it in a way that's actually going to be meaningful and not just shelfware. I think that's really exciting. I can
Definitely.
see why you got your Series B.
Yeah. Yeah. And 100 million TCV in a year, which is really, really exciting.
That is incredible. But of course, with your example, not a surprise. That makes total sense to me. Considering all the people that you know or aspire to know, who else do we need to be paying attention to?
So I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball at that answer, which is, there was a very important person in my life that gave me a lot of, I learned a lot from, right? He gave me a lot in life. Unfortunately, he passed away a little over a year ago, but he was the founder of that startup that I alluded to earlier. His name was Louis Gersh, and he just knew so much about so many different things. And I remember coming into the office every day and like, I just learned something new, whether that be about politics or business, education, pop culture. Like, he seemed to just know everything. And sometimes it didn't feel believable, but he was always right, that he knew so much. So I definitely, and I used to hear from him before he passed, like every other day with some new nugget, well past the time of us working together. So yeah.
I love people like that. I always joke, like, my favorite thing is to trade random facts, trivia, or just like random little nuggets of things. Like, that's 100% my love language. You can text me one of those any day and I'll be like, oh my God, that's so cool. And then I will go down a rabbit hole and kind of try to come back at you with the similar thing. So I love that.
Conversation's going so well today. I'm even with all the usage of AI, I still love Wikipedia, and I can go down a Wikipedia rabbit hole any day. So,
oh my God, yes, we love it. If someone is loving this conversation, they want to connect with you, they want to learn more, they want to learn more about Unframe or your story, where can they find you online?
If they want to learn more about Unframe, please visit our website at unframe.ai. So UNFRAME.ai. If you would like to connect with me on LinkedIn, please feel free. It's my name, as you can see on the screen. Hard to spell, but it's LinkedIn -in-Jacquelyn Goldberg. So.
And if you're looking for me, you can also find me on LinkedIn. You can search Alyssa and Nolte. If you find the notorious plant killer, you know you have found the right Alyssa and Nolte. I also write on Substack under Alyssa Likes to Talk. Jacquelyn, I have loved this conversation. It is so refreshing to talk to someone who is really thinking about what it means to be in a, we'll call it post era of AI, where we're saying goodbye to the mundane. We're really connecting with what this technology can do for us, but we're keeping our humanity and our critical thinking at the center. I think that it's such a fresh perspective and an important one. So thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing with us today.
Thank you for having me. This has been so fun.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. There are millions of podcasts out there, and something like 70,000 new episodes are released every single day. It's not lost on me how lucky I am to have such an incredible community who show up and support this show. To be a guest or nominate someone who should join me on the pod, head to alyssanolte.com. And if you're looking for ad-free episodes, you can join me on Substack. I post all new episodes of my podcasts and share appearances on other people's shows, plus bonus content and updates on what I'm working on. Search Alyssa Likes to Talk or tap the link in the show notes.